found in the book of John, chapter 15, verses 9 through 17, and it is found on page 113 in your Bible. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you. And I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You may be seated. Hello. My name is Hintz. I am 18 years old and I go to Bismarck High School and I will be graduating this June. The number one question that I've been getting asked lately is, where are you going to college and what are you going to be majoring in? And unlike a lot of my peers, I actually have the answers to these questions. I'm going to be attending Minnesota State University, Moorhead, and I will be double majoring in communication arts and literature. And I will also be majoring in photography, and I hopefully will become a high school English teacher and doing some photography on the side in the next 6 years. I'm pretty active here at church. I'm a part of RAD. I go on summer trips every year, and I have been since my freshman year. I have been to the National Youth Gathering in New Orleans, and I worshiped with over 30,000 other people, and I'm going to be going to Detroit this summer. I'll let you. There's a lot of you here, so I probably should have did my hair a little better for this. Whoops, my bad. Okay, that's me with straight ass braids. At least my hair doesn't look like that anymore. That's at the big center, I don't know what it's called, but that's where the Saints play football. And that's us doing something, I'm not sure what. My mother also went to a National Youth Gathering. She went to the one in 1988 to San Antonio. And my grandma actually went to the first ever youth gathering in 1961 in Miami, Florida. And she actually got to see Martin Luther King Jr. speak, which is pretty cool. She recently gave me a sheet that she got for her trip when she went, and it was called a Miami Beach poop sheet. And I wasn't sure what that meant, but I knew it wasn't literal, so I looked it up, and apparently it means that it's just like a sheet that you give to a group of people to let them know what's going on. And I found it really interesting that it stated that every breakfast cost 50 cents, every dinner and supper was $1, and the total cost of the trip was $136.30. Now that is not what I'm going to be paying for my youth trip, sadly, but that is how much it was back then. And my favorite part of the poop sheet is what the dress code was. And for girls, it says on the way down, shorts, Bermudas or Jamaicas, which I'm not really sure what those are, or slacks would be just fine, just no short shorts. And the boys were expected to wear suits for the final Sunday service, and that they were expected to wear sport shirts, sport slacks, and comfortable shoes. So that's pretty different than what we're going to be wearing down there. So I have gone on the Flathead Lutheran Bible Camp, and I rafted down the Flathead River. I also went to Camp Amnicon last summer and hiked along Lake Superior, and I will be talking about that experience a little later, but here's me there. I'm kind of regretting these pictures now because they're really embarrassing, and there's a lot of you. There's me again in my cool outfit. I also went to El Salvador last summer, and I helped a young family dig a foundation for their first house, and I will be going back again this July. And so there's our crew. So yeah, I've gone on a lot of trips through church, and all of these trips have shaped me to who I am today. On the Flathead River, I discovered the beauty in little things, like not having my phone for a week, and that sometimes it's actually a really good thing to have a break from our crazy lives. I'm involved in 3 different choirs, along with honor choirs throughout the year and competitions, so I definitely understand what it's like to be busy, and this trip really taught me that in order to not go insane, you need to disconnect yourself from society for a little bit. In the gospel, Jesus says that as the Father loves me, so I also love you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love. And personally, I feel for myself that this is one of the hardest commandments to keep. I mean, honestly, I'm in high school, and there are some definite times that I do not love my teachers for giving me so much homework that I can't get it done. And sometimes I don't love my peers, especially when I have classes with freshmen. Yeah. But when I went on my National Youth Gathering trip to New Orleans, I believe that was the first time I really started being cautious about judging other people. They really talked about accepting people and loving people, and that really stuck with me because previously, before that trip, I hadn't been doing a very good job of it. And granted that it was the summer before my freshman year and I was 14 years old, I'm forever grateful for that because I've learned that you can't judge books by their cover. There have been instances in my life where people have hurt me, people have abused me, people have betrayed me. But honestly, I have forgiven them every time. I mean, if Jesus can love me after all the faults that I've done, and he can forgive everyone after everything they've done, why can't I? I don't believe that there has ever been or ever will be a time where I will look back on the hardships and think, wow, that was an awful person, they don't deserve happiness. But I will rather look back and think, it might have been a mistake or it might have been intentional, but either way, they will be going to heaven along with myself. A wonderfully specific example of loving someone even though you so desperately want to hate them would be on my last trip to Camp Amnicon. Hiking in the deep insect-infested woods in Minnesota with around 90 pounds on your back and a limited amount of bug spray can turn the sweetest flower of a person into something terrifying. And unfortunately, I was that person. Don't get me wrong, the trip was an awesome weight loss boot camp, and my senior pictures are forever grateful for that. But our 2 leaders from the camp is what really got to us. They were almost way too nice. Every morning, one of them would shake our tent and say, "Good morning, beautiful people." And looking back on it now, that's an awesome way to wake someone up. But it's not when there's a tent full of 17-year-old girls who are extremely exhausted and irritated. We also weren't allowed to carry watches with us. So on the first night, we walked the trail about 5 miles with the most amount of stuff on our back because we hadn't eaten anything yet. And so we got to the campsite and we set up camp, and it got dark really quickly. Because we walked about 5 miles that day and we started about 3, so it took a really, really long time. We set up camp, we did a Bible study, and we were really ready to have supper. Our leaders told us that we only eat when we are hungry. And by that time, and about 3 hours before that time, we were very hungry, except for our leaders apparently. So right before we began to eat, one of the girls that I was with realized that her camera had a clock on it. And so she checked it. And it was midnight. And so this is me after the hike. And this is our group. And this is us after we realized that it was midnight. So we literally ate supper at midnight. Although our leaders got on our nerves and tensions were at their peak, I look back and I actually really like those leaders. I learned that sometimes you can really not be into someone for some time, but that's completely okay. God didn't make us perfect, but looking back on the experience, I'm grateful for leaders, and I very much love them for keeping us alive. It was just simply the circumstances that made us angry with them. Jesus also states in the gospel that you did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give to you. This verse makes me immediately think about my trip to El Salvador. The family we helped didn't necessarily choose us, but we chose them. And people of El Salvador welcomed us with open arms, even though our cultures and backgrounds are almost complete opposites. But we do have one common thread, and that is Jesus Christ. Love thy neighbor, and we are expected to do just that. Even though they don't live in the same country as us, or down the street, or even in a neighboring country, they're still our neighbors. And I love them for that. And I love the two children that I got to hang out with for 5 days, Brian and Leslie. They're right there. And they loved me, and they welcomed me with open arms. And although we weren't next door neighbors, and even though we didn't even speak the same language, there was still an indescribable connection between us. And that's all that matters. And my definition of love thy neighbor is so that everyone can love everyone, anywhere, at any time, no matter what. Thank you.